Hey there, Psycho, heard the news. There's a new podcast made just for you. So if you like Psych and pineapples too, then I know you know what to do. Come on down to Santa Barbara town and get ready for Psyched.
Hi guys, I'm Luke, your guest host for the Psyched podcast this episode. A podcast where we discuss all things Psych, the hit USA TV show. From hidden pineapples to crazy nicknames, come on son and join the fun. If you are a fan of delicious flavor and have heard it both ways, this is for you. This week's episode is Sean versus the Red Phantom, episode 8 of season 1 of the hit series Psych. Here's a description of this week's episode. A teenager goes missing, and to Gus' delight, he and Sean must spend the entire weekend at the boy's last known location, Santa Barbara Comic-Con, investigating his disappearance. Before we continue, I've been watching the series ever since probably the last season of Psych. I started watching whenever the show came on Ion. That was probably the best time I ever watched episodes of Psych. I remember that me and my brother had a lot of fun time watching the Psych and just watching all these episodes of them doing all these crazy shenanigans and tomfoolery Sean and Gus would have, and it was very entertaining, and I just fell in love with the series. I knew about the series because I watched Monk, almost every episode, like pretty much every episode of Monk, and I remember seeing commercials for Psych. I never realized how much fun it was to watch at that time. But I grew to love Psych. And I consider it my second favorite show, Monk's on top. So that tells you about where my headspace is for Psych. This episode is one of my favorites. So I knew I had to jump at the chance to guest host this episode. So I want to thank you, Keaton. Thank you very much. I'm also the person who designed the Instagram and YouTube logo, so I hope you guys enjoy that. It took me quite a while to figure out what I wanted to do with the logo. So, enough blabbering. With this episode, I feel that when I rewatched it, the second part of this series doesn't always have a second story going along with the main story. So it's interesting to see Laster and Chief Vic go to like a seminar, but we all know it's really because Chief Vic, she's having her kid, and it just was really interesting watching the second time because I feel like it took away from Sean's area, but it did take you a break from Gus and Sean's investigation. I thought it was funny with Laster in a car for the first bit where Chief Vic, she's talking on the phone, seems to be her husband or ex, I forget where they stand in this beginning of the series. And then we have Laster, who thinks he's getting talked to by Chief Vic and all these compliments, and he's got a little weird toward the end, and he realized it wasn't really she was not talking to him, which is kind of funny, and to see Laster think highly of him, but it's really not him at all. So that was funny. So with Sean versus the Red Phantom, it's one of my favorite episodes because I'm very much a comic book guy, and I love comics. Usually DC and Marvel's where I am at. Mostly a Marvel guy, but I love DC too. So, to continue, I find the main villain, I'll use villain, the main villain in this to be quite funny because he wants to, bring forth, like, his reaction to this movie coming out, and of course he wants to make his character known as good, and it seems like so many people seem to be making so horrible films off his character. So it's quite funny because to me it's reminiscent of Batman and Robin, which we'll get to the references soon. I have quite a few of them. I really like sorry all the uhs, but I do like the one part in the episode is like my favorite. Sean has Gus come up because he needs to call upon the powers of Magic Head, and they're like chanting Magic Head, and that's like my favorite part of the whole episode. But seeing them go after this comic book villain, so to say, is very cool. But I do wish we got to figure it out for ourselves before they did. But I think it was pretty smart what they did. So, I will say this episode, I will give it a 9 out of 10, because I feel like it could be a little bit tidy together, because we all need to have another side plot. But here is what I found for references to comics. So, the references I have, the first one, Sean is dressed in a red towel, blue t-shirt, and red shorts, running with both fists in the air. If you know comics, this is a reference to Superman. Even the music sounds like the classic theme of John Williams from the Superman films. And number 2, can't make out the one comic with red and yellow font, but that Henry holds. But one has to be Static Shock. These are both DC Comics. Henry also makes a jab at Commissioner Gordon. He shines a bat signal for Batman, another DC comic hero. That was who he was referencing. Number 3, when the guys first enter the missing kid's room, I can spot 4 Spawn comic books. These are made by Image Comics. Number 4, couple pan shots later of the room, you can see Firestorm comic, Hawkman. All of these comics are DC's comics, and the weekly book. And then we have a Star Trek reference. This is George Takei, I think, or Takai, however Sean is pronouncing it. Best known for Star Trek. I don't know too much on that, so I'm not going into that. The Red Phantom is somewhat real in DC Comics, but not the way the Psych show portrays him. He has a comic called Gotham City Monsters. That's when he first appeared, which was really recent. I don't know, I think it was after the series. Number 7, the Green Spirit might be a riff on the Green Hornet. Sean says he saw a movie on him that had nipples on his suit. This is most likely a reference to Batman and Robin, the movie, which they had nipples on their bat suits and I guess Robin suits. So yeah, it was pretty bad time for DC. Number 8. The one producer is named Talia. Now, if you're a comic book fan and know Batman comics, Talia, this probably is a reference to Talia al Ghul, which is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, which there's multiple ways to pronounce Ra's al Ghul, which I will not say. So, number 9, we see a note that says Judgment Day. This turns into a reference to the movie Terminator 2, Judgment Day, which is probably my favorite Terminator film. Number 10, the creator of the Green Spirit does have a comic book villain jab at Sean, which is pretty much like, you'll never get away, you'll never catch me, my plan's already in motion, something like that, which I found to be quite amusing. There is no pineapple person who has found the pineapple in this episode, so me and Keaton found a website that is from the fandom Psych Wiki, and it is an article for the list of pineapple appearances along with the Peacock video, and it does list season 1 throughout all the seasons, so you could use this as a cheat sheet if you wanted to. I really like this episode of Psych. I feel like we should have more episodes of Psych that have comic book elements, but I feel that this is probably the only one that we'll have for a while. With them adding movies to their roster, hopefully we get a trilogy of Psych movies. I'm very much a comic book fan. I love Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, all those guys from DC and Marvel. I will have to say that I'm so appreciative to be featured on this episode. Sorry it may be short. I just really want to tell you guys the references I saw. And this is the first time I've got to really investigate to see what was in this series. Most of the other comics that I don't mention that you see posters for are just made up for the show, I presume. If you like my art that I did for the Instagram page and YouTube, you can find me on Instagram at LukeArts_graphic designer, all together, all lowercase. I'm currently not taking any commissions, but I might be posting some new things soon. I have 0 followers, 0 posts, and 0 following, just for your advice on finding me. I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope I have made your psychness happy, I would say, if that makes sense. So, one takeaway from this episode is I just love that we've had the birth of Magic Head. And I will have to say, it was one of my favorite episodes, and favorite to rewatch over and over again. Sorry I've not mentioned too much of the episode, I just figure I could just sum it up real small. So, hope you all have a good day, and I will